The red hot 9-2 Los Angeles Rams head into Carolina to play the 6-6 Carolina Panthers. Now this Panthers team had a pretty rough showing in primetime against the 49ers. That game did not go the way that they wanted. So are they going to be able to bounce back, or are the Rams going to be able to put up another dominant blowout victory? Definitely let me know what you guys think down below on if this is going to be a blowout kind of win for the Rams, or if the Panthers are going to play it sneaky, get a win. What are your thoughts on all of this? Because to be fair, the Panthers are kind of one of those teams that you never really know what you're going to get out of them. You could get a really good game and their best kind of performance, and that happens at home a lot of the times this season for the Panthers, or you could get a performance like they had against the 49ers and be kind of questioning what kind of team this is. But regardless of all of that, this team actually features a lot of former Rams. Now some of these former Rams are injured right now for the Panthers, but it's still interesting to see a bunch of different familiar faces. I mean, you got Christian Roseboom, Bobby Brown, Nick Scott, Ashawn Robinson, Austin Corbett, even their defensive coordinator, Ejiro Evero, is a guy who came from the Rams. So a lot of familiarity here in this game. Now, how will that affect things? Let's get in the game preview. All right, let's start with this Rams defense versus this Panthers offense. A Panthers offense that's been pretty volatile and up and down this season. The Panthers offense is most effective when they lean into their running game. Rico Dowdle and Chuba Hubbard are definitely one of those underrated running back tandems that have done really well for them, have been very effective for the Panthers this season. And when you look at some of those offensive performances this season that have been really good for the Panthers, a large part of that is because of their rushing attack. In fact, that's kind of what a lot of Carolina Panthers fans are complaining about after this 49ers disappointment, and how their offense really didn't show up in that primetime game. They only ran it 9 times. For a team that's been this effective, ranking 10th overall in the league in rushing yards per game, only running it 9 times was definitely like a crime for them. Their passing game has been good at times, but it is definitely inconsistent, and they're kind of lacking those big plays that you like to see in a good passing offense. And it feels like there's just times when they're completely out of rhythm and out of sync, and it just doesn't look like they're fully running on all cylinders. So again, leaning into that run game has definitely been an important thing for this Panthers offense, and they're gonna have to do that again here. Now it's interesting, I talked about how this Panthers team is very volatile. They've had games where they've put up 30 points and they've looked really good, and even most recently against the Falcons, that was their best offensive performance, with Bryce Young breaking a quarterback record there for the Carolina Panthers. They were just looking so good. But in the last 6 games, the Panthers have scored 9 points, 30 points, 7 points, 13 points, 9 points, and 13 points again. This team ranks 28th overall in the entire NFL in points per game put up on offense. So they just are not that inspiring in my opinion, but they definitely have those kinds of games where they're just firing on all cylinders. And again, I really do think that this Panthers offense really relies on running the ball well to open things up and set things up for themselves later on in the game to have a good offensive performance, even a little bit more than other teams maybe can. But hey, let's get into the team rankings here in 2025 for the Carolina Panthers offense. So the Panthers offense, as I mentioned, ranks 28th overall in points per game, only 18 points a game. They rank 22nd in total offensive yards per game at 324.3. They rank 26th in passing yards per game with 202 a game. They rank top 10th overall rushing yards per game at 122.3. Again, a very big strength of this offense. And they rank 12th with time of possession being at about 30 minutes 51 seconds on average. So again, not a lot of things really sticking out about this team, but the run game is definitely something they do well, and I really don't think it's talked about enough, just because you hear Rico Dowdle, you hear Chuba Hubbard, and you don't think like, ooh, superstar running back, but these guys definitely have done really good, and Rico Dowdle has really broken out for them this year. Between Dowdle and Chuba Hubbard, they're over 1,000 yards rushing, and they have 6 total touchdowns combined just on the ground. So very effective. It's just a matter on if they're going to lean into them or not on any given game. And even more interesting, these running backs get involved in the passing game a ton. Between Rico Dowdle and Chuba Hubbard, they have 48 combined catches. And to put that in perspective, the leading receiver of this Panthers offense is Ted McMillan, obviously first round draft pick. He's at 56 catches. So these 2 running backs combined are used a lot in the passing game. 48 catches, 386 yards, and 3 touchdowns between the 2 of them. So it's definitely going to be big on the Rams to be able to identify that and tackle them before they can really make things work there in the passing game. But speaking of Ted McMillan, a guy that the Rams actually were trying to trade up to get, he's been phenomenal for the Panthers this year at wide receiver. It's going to be really interesting to see how the Rams defense plays him. He leads the team in targets, catches, touchdowns, yards, just by a wide margin. He's clearly their #1 wide receiver. And something interesting too, he has 45 first downs for this team, which is 31 more than any other weapon on this offense in the passing game. So he's definitely a guy that gets a lot of first downs for them and keeps the drives going. Jalen Coker is also a guy who has been a good bright spot for the Panthers Panthers, especially last year, and he kind of breaking out. He's missed some time this year, but he's definitely a guy to keep an eye on at wide receiver. They have Hunter Renfrow, surprisingly, in this wide receiver core out of retirement, who's had a couple touchdowns. And of course, Xavier Legette is kind of like the wide receiver 2 in this offense. Tommy Tremble at tight end is also a guy that can get involved here or there, but has had a bit of a down year. But obviously, an offense doesn't work without a quarterback. They have Bryce Young, former first-round pick, and he's definitely been up and down. I mean, he had that phenomenal game against the Falcons just a couple weeks ago, and then just had kind of like a bit of a stinker kind of game against the 49ers. On the year, Bryce Young has just over 2,000 yards passing, 15 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. You obviously want that ratio to be a little bit better, a little bit more touchdowns. Again, this passing game kind of lacks consistency, especially just to be consistent and very effective. Again, they're going to have to rely on that run game to be able to open things up and let the offense breathe, especially with a young guy at quarterback going up against this Rams defense. I think it's going to be pivotal for them to keep things easy for him, to make the run game kind of carry the load and let that open up some deep shots maybe to take for them. Okay, let's get into some key matchups between this Rams defense versus the Panthers offense. Definitely some big ones to be watching out for here, and I'm going to start none other than Ted McMillan, wide receiver 1, first round draft choice, going up against a rising star in Emmanuel Forbes Jr., who had 5 pass breakups a week ago, an interception. He's had 3 interceptions in the last 3 games. It has really been breaking out for them. Big body, kind of longer corner to go up against a big body receiver in Ted McMillan, who's been tearing it up for the Panthers. This is going to be one that's going to be so much fun to watch, and I think Forbes is going to get his fair share of wins. The next matchup is going to be a little bit interesting here. I'm going Bryce Young versus Cam Kinchins. Now let me expound on this. I think the Rams game plan in this is going to be kind of pressuring Bryce Young, but also allowing him to have those abilities to try to play make and maybe force things downfield, maybe on play extensions or things like that, to where I think the Rams can maybe get some interceptions in this game. And Cam Kinchins is very opportunistic. He flies around the field and he can go from one side of the field all the way to the other, make a read and get interceptions. We've seen him do it before. So I'm going to be watching this matchup because I think Cam Kinchins is going to be one of those guys that's going to be free to ball hawk like he has been doing all season, and kind of read Bryce Young's eyes, maybe kind of bait him into a throw down the field with Bryce Young extending a play and getting an interception. And that's why I have these two on key matchups here. All right, my last matchup for the Rams defense versus the Panthers offense, I'm going Jared Verse versus Ikem Ekwonu, who is a former first round pick. Their left tackle obviously was one of the biggest prospects in that draft, going up against Jared Verse, who absolutely lit up Tristan Wirfs on a couple matchups on Sunday Night Football, got 2 sacks. Can Jared Verse keep this going? Even if he doesn't get the sacks, he just always disrupts an offense, and a young tackle and Ikem Ekwonu going up against Jared Verse is something I'm going to be keeping my eyes glued to on the screen on Sunday. All right, let's get into some keys of the game for this Rams defense versus the Panthers offense. I'm going to start with stopping the run. This is often a key here in the keys to the game, but an offense like this, like I talked about earlier, really depends on the run game to get going, take pressure off of a young quarterback in Bryce Young, especially against a defense like this. So I think if the Rams can really stop the run, something that obviously Dave Canales, their head coach, has been facing a lot of criticism for, not running the ball enough. I'm sure that they're going to be trying to establish it even more against a good pass rush. So if the Rams can stop that run and force it into the Carolina Panthers passing offense, which has been up and down, but mainly down this year, I feel very confident as a Rams fan. My next big key is going to be keeping things exotic, which is something that Chris Shula does at a very high clip here with the Los Angeles Rams. While he doesn't blitz a ton, he brings a lot of different looks. He'll stack the box and he'll back out of it. He'll bring 4 different guys on a pressure, but maybe 2 of them are safeties and 2 of them are the edge rushers. He just changes the picture up a lot of the times, and I think that they're going to have to keep doing this for Bryce Young, who is still pretty young in the league, to be honest, and hasn't seen a ton like this Rams defense. If he can continue to present those different kinds of looks, get in his face and just disrupt him a little bit, I think that could really rattle a young quarterback who's still kind of figuring it out. And number 3 goes to a key I talked about earlier, which is I'm fine with forcing Bryce Young to be a playmaker. I know he's going to make his plays, and he did a lot of this in college super well and had his moments in the NFL, but I think the Rams should be open to try to bait him into some throws, to have him do some play extension things where he's throwing on the run, maybe rolling out of the pocket and looking downfield. I think the Rams can just get some interceptions here on this team. I don't know what it is. It's just kind of a feel. So I think if the Rams can force Bryce Young into playmaker mode and not just playing in rhythm, in structure, quick passes, that kind of thing, I think the Rams can really be opportunistic and take the football away. Okay, let's go to this Rams offense defense versus this Panthers defense. Rams offense has been absolutely on fire basically since coming off the bye. They have just been tearing teams up, putting up so many points a game, and it's going to be a very tough task for this Panthers defense that is a little bit beat up, but does have a coordinator that came from the Rams in Ejiro Evero who knows us well, and obviously a lot of familiar faces on the defensive side of the ball, as I mentioned earlier. Now we'll see, because the Panthers had both their linebackers beat up in this last game, including Christian Roseboom, who is their leading tackler. JC Horn went out with a concussion in that 49ers game. Who knows what the status is? I'm recording this on a Tuesday, so I don't know how much this has changed. I would expect him to play, but we'll see what happens. And one of their pass rushers, Wharton, was out last game, I believe, or he's been out for the last few weeks. So definitely some key pieces missing on this defense, and that's going to be a tough going up against this Rams high-powered offense. Now, as a whole, this Panthers defense has improved vastly from where they were a year ago. They were basically bad in every single category, especially against the run. I believe they were worst in the league against the run. This year, they've gotten so much better against the run with some of the additions, like our guy Bobby Brown, obviously Christian Roseboom, and they've really added in some key players to be able to help stop that run, and that's definitely worked for them. They ranked number 6 in overall interceptions across the entire NFL, so they're good at taking away the ball. We saw that against the 49ers on Monday Night Football, and they really keep things competitive at times, but they are also very susceptible to giving up good passing yards, and just good pass offenses are usually able to rip them up a little bit more than what you would like. So that's definitely something that the Rams can look at to try to take advantage of, especially if a guy like JC Horn may miss this game. It's also just going to be very interesting to see how Ejiro Evero calls this game, knowing his familiarity and the time he's spent in LA. The offense has changed quite a bit since he was here, but there's definitely going to be certain things, maybe situationally, that he knows that the Rams are going to try to do. But the question is, will they still be able to stop it even if they know it's coming? Let's get into these team ranks here for 2025 and the Panthers defense. In points allowed per game, Panthers rank 14th overall with 22.4, very solid. Total yards allowed per game, they rank 18th at 327.1. Passing yards allowed per game, they rank 16th, middle of the pack, 211.2. Rushing yards allowed per game, they rank 19th with 115.9. Doesn't look great on the stat sheet, but they definitely, just based off of eye test, have looked a lot better against the run. 49ers kind of took advantage of them there, but I don't know how much that was due to them missing both their linebackers. I think that kind of played into the hand of that. Sacks, they rank 30th overall. This is definitely not a strong suit for them. It's something the Rams can maybe look to take advantage of in the passing game. And as I mentioned earlier, they rank 6th in interceptions with 10 on the year. So again, I'm really looking to this Rams offense and seeing that this Panthers defense really doesn't do a good job of bringing the quarterback down. And I'm licking my chops, because this Rams offensive line is one of the better offensive lines in the league. You got a Hall of Fame quarterback who is playing his best football. You got Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams. You got the 13 personnel. That's definitely something that I'm looking at, and I'm like, ooh, maybe we can get another good passing game here for the Rams. And their leading tackler, we know him well, Christian Roseboom. He's got 91 on the year for this team. A lot of Panthers fans love this addition, so couldn't be happier for him. He did miss the last game against the 49ers. Will he miss another one? That is a question, and that linebacker core is definitely beat up for the Panthers, so they're going to need him back. But an underrated pickup for this Panthers team came from the Raiders and Trayvon Morag. He is their second leading tackler with 81, which is very impressive considering the position he plays. And he has the team lead 10 TFLs. So definitely watch the way he impacts the game, not only just from a coverage standpoint, but from tackling, from getting behind the line of scrimmage and bringing guys down there. As far as sacks go, Derek Brown and Nick Scorton lead the team with 3.5 each. That's very impressive for Derek Brown to have that from the interior position. Derek Brown has been dominating the league for years, and even if it doesn't show up on the stat sheet for sacks every year, he just blows things up. He's a massive body, and he's been doing it for a long time there. And him next to Bobby Brown or Ashawn Robinson, the guy who used to be on the Rams as well, is definitely scary when you're trying to run up against that, because that's just a lot of size and mass to go up against. And JC Horn, we know who he is. We saw him on Monday Night Football take away the ball a couple different times on Brock Purdy. Just a talented, phenomenal player. It's just mainly been the question about health for him, and we'll see if he plays in this game or not, but he's got the team and tied for the NFL lead in interceptions with 5. But on top of that, he's just an amazing coverage player as well. It makes sense why he got drafted where he did. So that JC Horn, Devontae Adams matchup, if he ends up playing, is going to be very juicy. It'll also be fun to see our guy Brick Scott out there again, huh? All right, some key matchups. I'm going to start with what I just left off with, and that's Devontae Adams versus JC Horn, of course. Penny health. Devontae Adams has just been crushing people all year, and it just feels like, especially over the last 6, 7, 8 weeks, he's really been getting on the same page with Stafford. Those red zone touchdowns are unstoppable, even when teams know that they're coming. Backside digs. Devontae Adams has been such a good pickup for the Rams, but JC Horn, we know how good he is too, and I'd expect if JC Horn plays, there are going to be a couple of those matchups where we're like, oh, wow, he's actually got Devontae Adams covered pretty well, because he's just one of the better corners in the league. But I also do expect the Rams to be able to kind of exploit things in that cornerback room, room and secondary room at times as well. My next matchup, this is going to be fun to see if Kyron can kind of set him up and make him get stuck on a block and be able to get that running lane. Kyron, that's one of his favorite things to do. Set those linebackers up in the wrong spots and go where they just were. And Christian Roseboom, that was definitely something that was a bit of a weakness for him at times for the Rams, as well as tackling at times for the Rams as far as success rate. So watching these two going at it is going to be really fun. My next matchup is going to be Kevin Dotson against Derek Brown. Kevin Dotson, one of the best offensive linemen on the Rams team, and even one of the better guards in the league that just doesn't really get talked about a lot, going up against a guy who has been an underrated, almost sleeping giant kind of guy, and he can disrupt things. Like I said, in the run game, he's really good at stuff in the run there, but he also has his opportunities to disrupt things up the middle, even batting balls at the line. He's just an animal, and that's going to be a fun one to watch. All right, some keys to the Rams offense versus this Panthers defense. I think taking shots is going to be a big thing for this Rams team, and McVay never shies away from taking shots and passing the ball. That's what he loves to do. And I think if this Panthers cornerback room is a little bit beat up with JC Horn missing the game, or even if he doesn't miss the game, their pass rush just has not been that inspiring. And the Rams offensive line has been very good. And I think the Rams have to take their opportunities to take shots down the field, keep them honest, and I think the Rams can even convert on some of those opportunities. Another key to the game, I think that you should try to establish the run here. I don't think it's pivotal that the Rams have to do it in a game like this, but I think establishing the run to keep things balanced and be able to mix up your calls, use that 13 personnel against a younger kind of defense is going to be key for the Rams here. Because we did see against the 49ers on Monday night, again, part of this may have been because they're missing their linebackers. That is huge losses, but we did see that the 49ers were able to get some really good success on the ground running it there with McCaffrey. So can the Rams do the same thing with Corum and Kyron Williams? And my third key, just keep it balanced. Like, again, I don't think you're going to have to necessarily lean into being completely balanced in a game like this. No offense to the Panthers, but we're not playing a team like the Seahawks or just a top tier team in the league. And I think that keeping things balanced is just going to keep the defense off guard enough, especially if you can just run the ball a little bit and set up those play action shots and different things to keep the marriage of the run and the pass. I think that's going to be big here for the Rams. At the end of the day, I hate predicting blowouts, but I have a good feeling about this Rams game. The Panthers do play very well at home, and they are a little bit volatile and hard to predict, but I really like the way this Rams defense matches up against this Panthers offense. I think we're going to be able to stop the run really well, force it into Bryce Young's hands, and make him have to make the plays. And I just think the Rams defense is going to get a couple turnovers that way, and I think that the Rams offense is going to have a day against this defense. Maybe they won't be able to run the ball super well, but I think that through the air, that's where the Rams are really going to attack, especially with just not the best pass rush there on the Panthers side of things. So all that to say, I know this is going to sound like a homer pick. I'm going to pick the Rams to win this game 30-14. We'll see what ends up happening. Obviously, let me know your score predictions down below. Thank you for hanging with me today. My name is Rams House. Hope you guys have a great day. Horns up and God bless.